Hello students, welcome to our Hayagreev Foundation YouTube channel. Dear students, in the previous class we all discussed about the advent of Europeans to India. In this lesson very clearly we discussed it and we learned that how the trade was going on between India and European countries, then what made the Europeans to discover new sea route to India, then Carnatic Wars, the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar, and finally dual government. About all these topics we revised, we discussed in the last lesson. Then let us go to next lesson, that is the extension of British Empire. English East India Company was established to make only to trade in India, but by seeing the political circumstances in India, the British started to interfere in the political matters of Indians. As a result, what happens? It made them to involve in the battles like the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar. Through the Battle of Plassey and Buxar in the eastern part of India, the British gained political power. And one more, in the previous lesson we all discussed that the Portuguese and the Dutch completely they failed to compete against the French and the English, and whereas the French completely they had lost their political power in India after the Carnatic Wars. So thus there was no Europeans to challenge the British power in India. As a result, the British started to grow very powerful in India. But one thing we have to observe that when the British gained their power in East India, by the time in South India, most powerful kingdoms were there. The Mysore kingdom and the Marathas. The Mysore kingdom and the Marathas were very powerful in South India. So among them, in the Mysore, Hyder Ali and the Tipu Sultan were very powerful, and whereas the Marathas under the leadership of Peshwas, they challenged to the British. And at the same time, in the northwest part of country, the Sikhs, even they were also very powerful under the leadership of Ranjit Singh. So Ranjit Singh organized very effectively the Sikh and he started to fight against the British. So thus, in the different part like a southern part and a northwest part was there. Now in this, the British couldn't rise their power. They were restricted only to the Bengal and Bombay. They were restricted only to Bengal and Bombay. Then, as they decided to extend their kingdom in India, they decided to make many wars against the Indian rulers. It led to the Anglo-Mysore Wars, Anglo-Maratha Wars and Anglo-Sikh Wars. And also, very cunningly, the British decided to expand their kingdom in India. So, because of that, many cunning policies they introduced in our country, that is nothing but subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse. Students, we are going to learn in the extension of British Empire. In this lesson, we are going to learn about the Anglo-Maratha Wars, Anglo-Sikh Wars, subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse. And whereas Anglo-Mysore War, it is explained in the fourth unit, means in the fourth lesson it is explained. So that one in the next class let us discuss today. That means in this lesson let us discuss only about Anglo-Maratha Wars, Anglo-Sikh Wars, subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse. Then come, first let us discuss about the first Anglo-Maratha War. Anglo-Maratha War, which was began in the year of 1775, it ended in the year of 1782. So what are the reason behind this? So let us discuss about that. Actually, there was no enmity between the Marathas and the English personally. But when the Marathas installed Shah Alam II as the Mughal Empire, when they made him to sit on the throne of Mughal, as a result what happened means from that time, as the Marathas installed Shah Alam II on the throne of Mughal Empire, it started enmity between the English and the Marathas. Why? Because as he became the Mughal emperor, by the time he granted some places to Marathas like Allahabad, Kora, These places he granted to the Marathas. And moreover, students, after the Battle of Buxar, Shah Alam surrendered. Shah Alam II surrendered to the British. Okay, just once you recall the effects of the Battle of Buxar. In this battle, Shah Alam II surrendered to the British. Okay, he granted many provisions to the British like Diwani rights, okay, and to make trade over the Bihar, Bengal, Orissa. So, like this many provisions he gave to the English. Okay, one who was under the control of English with the support of Marathas, he became the Mughal emperor. And also he granted some places to the Marathas. So because of this, the enmity started between the Marathas and the English. And the English were waiting for the chance. What for the chance? To interfere in the Marathas' politics. At the same time, what happened? One of the most powerful Peshwa is nothing but Madhav Rao I. He died. After the death of Madhav Rao I, his brother Narayan Rao became the Peshwa. When Narayan Rao became the Peshwa, his uncle, one who is called as Raghoba or Raghunath Rao, one who was trying to become the Peshwa of Marathas, he killed Narayan Rao. See students, in the history, when we go through the history, we will come to know that just because of power, father killed a son killed father, okay, they killed their family members. So like this many incidents we can see. Okay, so here Narayan Rao was killed by his own uncle Raghoba or Raghunath Rao. But after this, soon after this incident, the Maratha Federation means here totally students, 4 groups were there in the Marathas. Okay, that is Holkar, Scindia, Bhonsle, Gayakwad. Okay, so these 4 members are considered as the Maratha Federation. Those Maratha Federation made Madhav Rao II. Who is this Madhav Rao II? He was the son of Narayan Rao. Soon after the death of Narayan Rao, his son Madhav Rao II was appointed as the Peshwa of Marathas. But by this, Raghoba was disappointed very much. Why he was disappointed means just to become the Peshwa, he killed Narayan Rao. But later, the result was different. Madhav Rao II became the Peshwa of Marathas. So because of this, Raghoba asked the help of English. If the British support him to become the Peshwa of Maratha, he is going to surrender some places to the British. So like this one agreement they made. The British who were waiting for a chance to interfere into the politics of the Marathas or Marathas administration, so they decided to misuse this situation. As a result, what happened? The British waged war against the Marathas. Students, in the beginning, actually this war from 1775 to 782, totally 7 years continuously this war has taken place. In the beginning, the Marathas gained the upper hand. That means they succeeded in many battles. But later on what happened? They started to lose one by one the battles. When they had lost Allahabad to the British, then they surrendered to the Marathas. The British forced the Marathas to accept the Supply Agreement. Through the Supply Agreement, which was signed in the year of 1782, the first Anglo-Maratha War came to an end. Students, according to the Supply Agreement, the Marathas handed over some places to the British. In return, the British accepted that Madhav Rao II as the Peshwa of Marathas. According to the Supply Agreement, the Marathas handed over some places to the English or to the British. In return, the English accepted Madhav Rao II as the Peshwa of Marathas. Thus, first Anglo-Maratha War came to an end. Students, after discussing about the first Anglo-Maratha War, let us go to second Anglo-Maratha War. But before going to the second Anglo-Maratha War, something changes took place in India. That means in the British policies, some changes we can see in between first Anglo-Maratha War to second Anglo-Maratha War. So what is that changes and what is that policy? So come let us discuss. So after completing the first Anglo-Maratha War, the British government appointed a Governor General who is called as Lord Wellesley. When Lord Wellesley came to India, the expansion of the British Empire took very faster. Means compared to earlier, during the time of Lord Wellesley, this development took very faster. How means? Lord Wellesley followed three policies for the expansion of the British Empire in India. So which are those three policies? Means one thing, he introduced the subsidiary alliance. So what is that subsidiary alliance? So later we will come to know. Second one is waging war. One who don't accept the British policies, he decided to wage war against them. So that is second policy. And third one is direct administration. Already which are the places are occupied by the British, so those places must be administered directly by the British government. That means English East India Company itself. So like this, three policies he introduced. As a result, what happened? The expansion of the British Empire took very faster during the time of Lord Wellesley. Then come students, first let us discuss about the subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance was one of the cunning policy which was introduced by Lord Wellesley in the year of 1798. As soon as he came to India, he observed the political activities of the Indian kings. Then he decided to introduce the subsidiary alliance. The subsidiary alliance had many features. So what are those features? Let us discuss now. The native king, one who accept the subsidiary alliance, he must keep a British army in his court. So how many soldiers he has to keep? That is depending on the income of the state or the size of the state or the capacity of the state. On the basis of that, the British used to keep their army in the Indian kings, one who signed for the subsidiary alliance. And second one, he has to look after all the expenditure of that army. How many soldiers are there? Those soldiers' salary, okay, and their food and their residence. So all these expenditure is, it must be borne by the king, one who accepted the subsidiary alliance. And also he has to appoint a resident, a British resident in his court. What for? Means to observe these activities, political activities, how he is looking after the Indian soldiers or British army who are kept in his court. Okay, so how he is looking after. And the second one, what are his activities with the neighbors? Is there a, okay, so like this, to look after the political activities of local king, he has to appoint a resident. And then he should not supposed to appoint any Europeans in his court. Not only that, he should not supposed to allow any Europeans in his kingdom without the permission of the British. And moreover, being a king, he was unable to declare war against the neighbors, one who troubled to him. Being a king, he was unable to make a pact or friendly relations with the neighbor rulers. Being a king, if he wants to make any war against the neighbor rulers, or else if he wants to make any agreement with the neighbor rulers, the Governor General permission was mandatory. So all these features, a native ruler, one who accepted the subsidiary alliance, one who signed for the subsidiary alliance, he must follow all these features, all these conditions. Suppose that native ruler, if he follows all these conditions, the British promised them that they would protect him from his enemies. Listen students, one thing you have to observe that almost all the kingdoms came under the control of the British. Then where is the question about enmities or enemies? Where is the question about enemies? Almost all the kings have accepted the subsidiary alliance. So there will be no chance to make war against each other. Okay, but without understanding these facts, the native rulers accepted the subsidiary alliance. Okay, the first Indian ruler, one who accepted the subsidiary alliance, he was Hyderabad Nizam. Hyderabad Nizam was the first Indian ruler to accept subsidiary alliance. And later on what happened? Mysore rulers, the Nizam of Awadh, okay, then later on Marathas, Tanjavur. So like this, many Indian kings accepted the subsidiary alliance. Thus, by introducing the subsidiary alliance, the British expanded their kingdom. Without waging war against the Indian rulers, they started to expand their kingdom. So thus, the British grew very powerful during the time of Lord Wellesley. And moreover, students, it became very easy to the British to maintain their army because they had kept their army in the king's court, because that is one of the condition of the subsidiary alliance. So that's what it became very easy to the British to maintain their army. After discussing about first Anglo-Maratha War and subsidiary alliance, now let us learn about second Anglo-Maratha War, which was fought between 1803 to 1805. Students, for every battles there will be a reason. So likewise, for second Anglo-Maratha War also reasons are there. So which are those reasons? Let us discuss now. So after the death of Madhav Rao II, you might have remembered Madhav Rao II. After the death of Narayana Rao, his son Madhav Rao II was appointed as the Peshwa. So after his death, Baji Rao II, the son of Raghoba or Raghunath Rao, he became the Peshwa of Marathas. When he became the Peshwa of Marathas, there was some changes took place among the Maratha chieftains or Maratha leaders. Who are those Maratha leaders? You know that Scindia, Holkar, Bhonsle and Gayakwad. So among them, Scindia and Holkar, these two members tried to get control over Baji Rao II. Their intention is, if we get control over Baji Rao II, entire Maratha kingdom will be under their control. That's what they decided to get control over Baji Rao II. So in this competition, conflict started between Daulat Rao of Scindia and Yashwant Rao of Holkar. In between these two members, conflict started, competition started. Finally, Daulat Rao Scindia succeeded to get control over Baji Rao II. By this, Yashwant Rao Holkar enraged and he defeated the combined force of Baji Rao II and Daulat Rao Scindia. When he defeated combined force, Baji Rao II scared a lot. He thought that Yashwant Rao Holkar, he may defeat me also, he may kill me. Thinking that, he asked the help of British. The British, who were waiting for opportunities always, they decided to misuse this situation. As a result, the British forced Baji Rao II, if you want protection from Yashwant Rao Holkar, you have to accept subsidiary alliance. You know, subsidiary alliance means many advantages or many benefits they used to get by the local kings, and in return they used to provide protection. There was no other chance for Baji Rao II, hence he accepted subsidiary alliance through the Treaty of Bessin. Through the Treaty of Bessin, Baji Rao II accepted the subsidiary alliance. When Baji Rao II accepted this agreement, it enraged the other Maratha chieftains like Scindia, Holkar, Bhonsle and Gayakwad. All these chieftains, they formed an alliance and declared war against the British. By this time, the British Governor General was Lord Wellesley. So Lord Wellesley, he was having the war thirstiness. He wanted to extend his kingdom, means the kingdom of the English East India companies, that one he wanted to expand. So because of that, he was ready to make many battles. when the Maratha chieftains declared war against the British, even Lord Wellesley also made many wars against the Maratha chieftains. From 1803 to 1805, many battles took place. In all these battles, Lord Wellesley succeeded. He got victory over the Marathas. Though he got victory also, one more problem created in the English East India Company, that is financial problem. As he made many war against the Marathas, due to this, the East India Company faced the financial burden. The English government decided that for this reason, for this problem, Lord Wellesley is the main reason, main cause. So, they forced Lord Wellesley to resign for his post. As a result, Lord Wellesley resigned to his post and he returned to England. Thus, the second Anglo-Maratha War came to an end. After discussing second Anglo-Maratha War, let us learn a third Anglo-Maratha War, which was fought between 1817 to 1818. Students, after completing the second Anglo-Maratha War, Lord Wellesley forced the Maratha chieftains to accept the subsidiary alliance. Already you know that the conditions of subsidiary alliance. If they accept subsidiary alliance, there will be no freedom to the local kings. So same thing happened to the Marathas also. If you learn the history of Marathas, very easily you will come to know that Marathas are well known for their courage. But now, after accepting this policy, there was no freedom for them. So they decided to protect their independence and honor. As a result, Peshwa means Bajirao II, he attacked over the Pune residency of the British, but he was failed. The other Maratha leaders also gave support to the Bajirao II by declaring war against the British. Among them, very important are Appa Saheb and Malhar Rao Holkar. Appa Saheb and Malhar Rao Holkar, they also made the combined force and they declared war against the British, but both of them were defeated completely. And finally, Bajirao II, once again by regathering the army, he declared war against the British at the place of Koregaon and Asti. In these two decided battles, so in these battles, Bajirao II was completely defeated. So after defeating the Bajirao II, the British decided to abolish the Peshwa post itself. Here onwards there will be no Peshwa. And then present Peshwa is there, Bajirao II, what about him? He was pensioned off of annual rupees of 8 lakh. 8 lakh rupees annual pension he started to get from the British. But he was not kept in the Maratha kingdom, but he was sent to the Bittur near Gwalior. Then, what about the remaining Maratha kingdom? The British decided that if we take completely Maratha kingdom into their empire, so definitely the Maratha people may not support to them, they may oppose them. So thinking that to console the Maratha people, they appointed Pratap Simha, the descendant of Shivaji family. They appointed Pratapa Simha as the king of Satara, a small provinces. Okay students, so thus after completing the third Anglo-Maratha War, the Maratha power completely ended in South India. Dear students, after discussing about three Anglo-Maratha wars, let us discuss about Anglo-Sikh War. You all know that after the Anglo-Maratha War, the British got complete political authority over the South India, and then they concentrated towards the northeast region, because in northeast region there was a kingdom called as Sikh kingdom, which was built by Ranjit Singh. You know that Ranjit Singh was also called as the Lion of Punjab. So during the time of Ranjit Singh, he made treaty of friendship with the British. So that means the British should not supposed to occupy or attack over the Sikh kingdom. So thus, by making the treaty of friendship, Ranjit Singh protected his Ranjit Singh protected his kingdom from the British. But after the death of Ranjit Singh, the British started to violate the Treaty of Friendship. They started to break the Treaty of Friendship. As a result, what happened? In the year of 1845, first Anglo-Sikh War took place. When the British started to gather their army to attack over the Sikh kingdom, the Sikh came to know about this, and finally they were supported by Hindu rulers and the Muslim rulers. That Sikhs, Hindus and the Muslims, so togetherly they declared war against the British. But in this battle, the British defeated all this alliance. The British defeated this alliance. So finally, Lahore Agreement was made between the Sikh and the British. So according to the Lahore Agreement, the Sikh ruler Dulip Singh wanted to give away Jammu and Kashmir to the British, and also the British forced the Dulip Singh to keep a resident in his court. It was the clear sign of subsidiary alliance. As a result, Sikh kingdom became the dependent state of English East India Company. Thus, first Anglo-Sikh War came to an end. But the Sikh rulers and the native people were they were not ready to accept the direct administration of the British over Sikh kingdom. As a result, once again all of them regathered under the leadership of Chattar Singh Attariwala of Lahore, Chattar Singh Attariwala of Lahore and Mulraj of Multan. So thus all the people united and they declared war against the British in the year of 1848. But in this battle also, the British Governor General Lord Dalhousie defeated this combined force. Thus, by defeating this combined force, he merged the Sikh kingdom with British Empire. Thus, after completing the Anglo-Sikh Wars, entire India came under the control of the British. Students, while discussing about Anglo-Sikh Wars, at last I mentioned that Dalhousie, one of the Governor General of the British East India Company, he merged Sikh kingdom with the British Empire. This Lord Dalhousie came to India in the year of 1848. Means during the time of Second Anglo-Sikh War, he came to India. As soon as he came to India, he also introduced a cunning policy. Before this only I mentioned that the British, without making war or without waging war against the native rulers, very easily they wanted to expand their kingdom. So because of that, many policies they introduced. For example, dual government and then subsidiary alliance. Likewise, Lord Dalhousie, he also introduced a policy which is called as doctrine of lapse. Dattu putrarige hakkilla. So like this, a new cunning policy was introduced by the Lord Dalhousie. According to the doctrine of lapse, if any Indian ruler died with a childless, without having children, if he died, or else if he do not have any children, especially male baby, then he must surrender his kingdom to the British. And there was no option to adopt a son or to adopt a child to make as the king. See, very clearly it says that the adopted children had no legal right over the throne. Instead of that, they wanted to surrender their kingdom to the British. Like that, many Indian rulers were there who were not having children. Okay? As a result, what happened? Many Indian kings were merged with the British Empire. So they are nothing but Satara, Nagpur, Sambalpur, Udaipur, Jhansi. Like this, many kingdoms came under the control of the British. Lord Dalhousie, he used this cunning policy as the political weapon. If the ruler who do not accept the doctrine of lapse, so for over them, he used to wage the war. One best example is Jhansi. Rani Lakshmi Bai, she fought against the British against the doctrine of lapse, by opposing doctrine of lapse. So finally she died, and then Jhansi came under the control of British. Like this, by using the doctrine of lapse policy, the British expanded their kingdom in entire India. You know, students, because of this doctrine of lapse, many Indian rulers had lost their kingship. The citizens of that kingdom was there, no? They started to show sympathy towards those kings, because from the beginning they used to show their love and loyalty to the kings itself, but not to the British. But now all of a sudden, by introducing the doctrine of lapse, they have abolished the kingship itself. So because of this enraged the common people. This enraged the common people to rebel against the English East India Company. So finally, it resulted for the Supply Mutiny. This doctrine of lapse also became one of the main reason for the Supply Mutiny in the future. Thank you, students.
ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗಿದ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಬೆಲ್ ಐಕನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡೋ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳ ನೋಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮೊದಲು ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸಂದೇಹಗಳಿದ್ರೆ ಕಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ತರಗತಿಗಳು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ತಲುಪುವಂತೆ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ.